Startled back into awareness, you realize that Matthew is shaking you. Teeth chattering, his voice low and urgent, he speaks in stuttering breaths.
Amelia, our core temperatures are dropping. We have to find a way to make the most of our clothing and everything we have.
Slowly you begin to process where you are and what is happening. You can no longer deny the facts. No one knows how to find you. No one will be coming to rescue you. You will either find a way to survive together, or you will die. This stark realization is accompanied by an electric jolt. Suddenly your mind is sharp, clear, and focused. A seemingly unrelated memory pops into your mind. You're 13 years old, giggling with your friends at your birthday slumber party on the subject of the Siberian survival method. You never knew whether it was just a joke or the truth, but it's the only thing you can think of. So setting aside any feelings of embarrassment, and speaking as best you can through your own chattering teeth, you say, I think we need to be skin to skin. My sweater is huge. We can both fit into it. So you put it on, unbutton your shirt so my back will be against your chest, and then wrap the sweater around me.
Okay, says Matthew. First, let's put our backpacks together so we can lie on our sides. It won't be very comfortable, but it might help.
You are both so cold it is difficult to move, let alone arrange your packs in the dark, while trying to find a spot that is as level as possible. It feels as if you are diving naked into an icy pond when you take off your sweater. With completely numb fingers, you unbutton your shirt and put it on backwards. Matthew quickly puts on your sweater, unbuttons his own shirt, and with a bit of awkward fumbling in the dark, you manage to reposition yourselves so that you are skin to skin with your sweater wrapped around both of you. Had you been on your own, you would have felt the discomfort of the uneven rocky ground, lumpy backpacks, and the annoying zipper digging into your hip. But every ache and pain dissolves into the warmth of Matthew's bare chest, pressing solidly into your back, his strong arm wrapped tightly around your waist.
Are you okay?
He whispers, his voice deep but shaking from the cold. You firmly place your hand over his. Yes, you say, nodding slightly. Even with the needling cold pricking every part of you, you're only aware of Matthew's warm skin, his chest rhythmically rising and falling with each breath, his heart beating all the way through your body. You want to dissolve into this moment and float forever on the waves of light passing silently between you. Your body begins to feel a bit warmer, but it isn't yet midnight. With at least 6 or 7 hours left to go, you know survival is impossible. What is it about time? It's so inconsistent, badly behaved even. In the late afternoon, time had moved so quickly, zipping by when you desperately needed it to slow down. And now it's moving agonizingly slow, heavy as stone. Time seems more like an obstinate child. Whatever you want from time, and the more you want it, time will do just the opposite. Tomorrow, the sun will continue shining. The world will go on just as it does every other day, night dissolving into day and back into night, endlessly cycling, seasons irresistibly recurring. But all of it will exist without you. How is that even possible? You're only in high school. Aren't you allowed to make mistakes? How can life be so unfair? With Matthew's arms still wrapped tightly around you, his heart beating steady and slow, time dissolves into this moment. In fact, the entire world is dissolving into this moment. No one and nothing else exists, just the two of you. You gently take Matthew's hand from your waist, place it over your heart, and put your hand over his. Then suddenly the ground beneath you disappears as an electric charge pulses through your body, and a blazing beam of golden white light draws you up into the sky. The world is frantically spinning, breaking apart into countless shining pieces, as if stars were being flung into the heavens. It is so beautiful you can hardly breathe. How had you missed this? Everything is vibrating. Every cell in your body, every atom on Earth, every star and galaxy, everything seen and unseen is pulsating, singing a song as ancient as time itself. As if you contain the sun, light radiates out of your heart and from every cell in your body. Matthew feels it too and whispers, "What's happening? You feel so warm." Electricity runs through your body as you shake your head, unable to speak. Trying to make sense of what you're experiencing, you open your eyes. "Matthew," you whisper urgently, "look!" Before you stands a golden-haired child, a little girl no more than 10 years old, with radiant skin, rosy cheeks, full red lips, and vivid blue eyes. She is barefoot, wearing a simple white dress with a wreath of wildflowers in her hair. Though she carries no light and certainly isn't glowing from within, you can see her clearly while still unable to see each other or anything else. At that moment, you and Matthew both feel warm and comfortable, as if the cold from only moments ago was nothing more than a dream. Though there is no apparent source of light, everything around you is lit by a soft, gentle glow that seems like a combination of late dusk, pre-dawn, and a full moon all rolled together as one. The child smiles sweetly and says, "I'm Asha." Then heading down the path, she adds, "Come on, this way," as if she's about to lead you on some grand adventure. Not only does she act as if nothing unusual had occurred, she seems completely oblivious to the fact that you and Matthew are still lying together on your sides, cocooned together in your sweater. Blinking and looking around, trying to make sense of everything, you quickly unbutton the sweater, wriggle out of it, then sit up and try to get your bearings. Matthew sits up as well and pulls off the sweater and hands it back to you. Though you're not the least bit cold, you hurriedly put on the sweater rather than try to figure out a way to gracefully turn your shirt back around. Hastily, you both jump to your feet, grab your backpacks, and rush to catch up with the curious little girl. Barely able to feel your feet touching the ground, a strange, tingling current flows through your body, as if you're floating. And though you're bursting with questions, nothing comes out of your mouth as you follow the girl down the trail. Finally, you find your voice. "Are you an angel?" But before the girl can answer, you say, "Are we dead?" Asha continues walking but turns her head to address you. "I'm not an angel, and you're not dead," she says lightly.
"But it's not cold anymore, and it's still dark, but we can see. How's that possible?"
says Matthew incredulously.
"You're both fine. You're just in another part of the program. What you might think of as a different dimension,"
says Asha, as if you know exactly what she's talking about.
What other dimension? What program are you talking about? The geology class we're in?
Says Matthew, studying the girl intently as she turns to look at him.
Oh my goodness,
says Asha in a sweet, sympathetic voice.
I'm afraid I've gotten way ahead of you. This may be difficult to understand. Actually, it's not difficult to understand. It's just that you obviously don't remember anything, and you wouldn't believe me if I told you.
She stops walking, and then surveying both of you, she adds,
What I have to tell you might be a bit shocking, so maybe we should sit down for a moment.
We don't have time to sit down, you say urgently. We have to get back to our camp. People are worried about us. They're searching for us. Kindly yet pragmatically, Matthew says,
Whatever it is you have to tell us, maybe we could just keep walking back.
Oh, I'm afraid you don't quite understand. Maybe it would help if you were to think of this as a parallel world,
says the little girl hopefully. You and Matthew look at her blankly. Asha thinks for a moment and says,
In this parallel world you're now in, it's warm instead of cold, right? Well, your friends and the people searching for you are in the world where it's cold,
she says, appearing rather pleased with herself.
What are you saying?
Says Matthew.
I'm saying that if you went back to your campsite, no one would be able to see you. No one would know you were there.
You both stare at her in silence, trying to assimilate the gravity of your situation.
So we are dead,
says Matthew quietly.
No,
says Asha, throwing her head back, laughing.
Okay, I'm just going to say it. There is no death. There never has been death. There never will be death. You will never die. Death only exists in the eyes of the beholder. Oh dear, I wasn't really planning to start there,
says Asha, sheepishly rolling her eyes.
I was thinking I would break you both in a bit more slowly to that idea. Okay, listen. What I'm about to tell you is, well, it's something that's known throughout the universe, but it's the biggest secret on Earth. It explains absolutely everything about so-called life and death, and it answers all unanswered questions and scientific anomalies. Every senseless thing, every terrible act, even the deepest sadness, all of it will make perfect sense. But first, repeat after me. Imagination is more important than knowledge. I don't mean in your heads, say it out loud,
says Asha encouragingly. You and Matthew look curiously at each other and then back at Asha. Imagination is more important than knowledge, you repeat perfunctorily.
Part 2. No matter what I tell you, no matter how unbelievable it may seem, simply say to yourself, this is a possibility. You don't have to believe what I'm telling you. Just give the idea some breathing room. This is a possibility. Are you ready?
You nod vigorously, hoping Asha won't suddenly change her mind and decide it's time for breakfast, leaving you hanging.
Here's the big secret. Earth and everything here is a virtual reality.
Asha looks expectantly at you.
In fact, Earth was created to be the ultimate virtual reality game in the universe. We just call it the game. It's the most challenging game ever created, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart. You've spent your entire life playing this game. But in reality, Earth isn't your home. It's simply a place where everyone goes to play and have experiences that they couldn't have anywhere else in the universe. Shall we sit down now?
Says Asha, nodding. In stunned silence, you and Matthew sit down next to each other, facing Asha. Of all the things you expected to hear in that moment, the idea that you are playing a game, that anyone could think of life on planet Earth as simply a game, is the most ludicrous thing you've ever heard. It's one area where this is a possibility absolutely, positively does not apply. Not to mention the fact that something on the scale of planet Earth would be impossible, even for God. Well, maybe not for God, but why would God create a virtual reality game? Was it to keep his creation entertained? There's no way, you say skeptically. If this was a computer program, then everything in it, every blade of grass, every raindrop, snowflake, grain of sand, every sunrise and sunset, not to mention every human being and every event throughout history, would have to be programmed into the game.
Not only that,
says Asha unflinchingly,
every possibility on every dimension, including parallel worlds and alternate realities, and things you've never even heard of before. And not only is everything programmed, the game has been around for billions of years and will continue for as long as people want to keep playing. Of course, there are some cultures that understand your world better than others. For instance, in India, they call life on Earth the Maya. They see life as an illusion, which is true, but it's not the whole picture. And the Aboriginals in Australia call it the dream time, which is also on the right track. But very few people have ever guessed that Earth and everything happening here is a game. If you think about it, neither of you could ever have comprehended the idea of a virtual reality game if we were having this conversation 100 years ago. So an illusion or a dream would be about as close as you could get.
But how could we be playing a game without knowing it? You say.
You're born into the game. Just before you're born, you choose your parents, your name, your date of birth, and of course your physical body. It's your avatar. You agree to forget who you are, where you came from, as well as any previous games you've played, and most importantly, the fact that you're playing a game at all. Every game you've ever played is recorded and stored in your DNA. So occasionally people do remember portions of games they've played before. And I'm only telling you this because it can be a little confusing. Most people don't have a visual memory of past games, but sometimes they have feelings that come up that can't be explained.
You have a feeling Asha is trying to tell you something, but you can't begin to imagine what she's talking about. Despite that, you decide to put logic aside and just play along. Surely this is some kind of made-up story typical of a 10-year-old. So just like any game, I could decide to play anyone I choose and be born at any time in history, you say. I mean, I could be Benjamin Franklin or Cleopatra, and then so could countless other people, right? How would that work? We can't all be the same person.
Of course you can,
says Asha, her eyes sparkling.
Think of it this way. No matter how many times you play a computer game, you never play exactly the same way, right? So every time you play, it's a new and different experience. Or think of it like a dream. Millions of people could dream they were Cleopatra or Ben Franklin, and every dream would be unique. People wouldn't be competing with each other to play the part. In the same way, each time you're born into the game, you create a new timeline. So there could be an infinite number of parallel versions of Cleopatra or Benjamin Franklin, and each version creates its own unique history, so to speak. Remember, every possibility already exists. Every time someone plays, they tap into a new version of reality that has never been played out before.
You're talking about infinite parallel realities, says Matthew, his scientific mind finally letting go of what is or is not possible.
But what about Amelia and I, for instance? Is there another version of us that went back to the campsite before dark? Or a version that died?
Yes, of course. All possibilities already exist. You can't think of anything or come up with a scenario that isn't already part of the program.
So you're saying that of all the fictional books that have ever been written, or ever will be written, all the stories are actually true in some alternate or parallel reality? And the author just tapped into that reality when writing the book?
Says Matthew, shaking his head doubtfully. Asha smiles, nodding her head yes vigorously. Over and over, you say to yourself, this is a possibility. You don't have to believe any of it. It's just a possibility. But everything in you wants to rebel.